I need to know, how are people taking what it is that they're learning and they're hearing and putting it into action and using what we're talking about in the podcast?
Well, you asked about the word feeling, didn't you? You said, well, how's it feeling? It's been kind of very emotional for me.
The reason the Kirkpatrick model remains the leading model, the most used, I like to think the most loved model around the world, is because it's complete.
Hi, friends. It's Vanessa and Jim. We are so excited to have you here. We have a very special episode. Jim, are you so excited about this one?
I would say I am. Yeah, I get pumped up for this pretty easily.
Awesome. Good. Well, this episode is a little snippet to show you just some of the fun things that we discovered at the Kirkpatrick Summit. This is a snippet from the Ask Us Anything panel. So this was Jim, Wendy, and myself, and everyone's, questions unfiltered and just giving a little bit of insight into the model, how it came to be, and all of the amazing work and work that is to come in the future. So make sure that you like, share, and subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an episode and you don't miss a beat. But more importantly, we need your help. So we need two very important things from you all. One, if you are a current podcast subscriber and you are a avid listener, first and foremost, thank you. That's absolutely incredible. But I need to know, and Jim is the one actually that asked for this, how are people taking what it is that they're learning and they're hearing and putting it into action and using what it is they're doing on what we're talking about in the podcast? Has the podcast helped you avoid a fatal flaw? Has a podcast helped you gain some buy-in? Let us know. Has it completely changed how you're doing evaluation? Let us know. So we are going to put in those show notes an email so you can get in touch with us and share your stories. And number two is we need to know what questions that you have so that we are curating the right episodes for you. There is no question that we will not take and assess for a future podcast. And maybe it won't make it onto a podcast, but it may make it into a future summit presentation or a blog post. So all of that information really helps us keep our finger on the pulse of what is happening. So with that, I want to, thank you all for being here and listening. And without any further ado, here is a bit of the Ask Us Anything panel.
All right. So we wanted to really give the people what they wanted and give you all a little bit more insight straight from the Kirkpatricks, just a little bit more about the model. Jim, already
so far, I'm a little out of my comfort zone.
How about a softball? Does that feel good? Okay. So what does it feel like to be celebrating the 70th year of the Kirkpatrick model?
Well, you asked about the word feeling, didn't you? You said, well, how's it feeling? It's been kind of very emotional for me. I know I've been setting it up a long time and I've been hearing about this and we're going to do this. And I was getting excited, but as it got closer, I'm out of my comfort zone. And that's a good thing. I don't like to get there, but it's good for me to be there. And the emotion is starting to wash over me. And here's the truth. 80 years ago today, my dad was in England and they were having a meeting in 1944. And that meeting was about what's going to happen the next day. And so it's kind of creepy. Here we are 80 years later. Is it June 4th today?
Today's June 4th, yeah.
And they were meeting to find out we are going to attack on the morning of the 6th. So that takes me back to the 80 years and now the 70 years and how many people have cared about us and we've been honored to care about. It's really emotional. I'm not sure I'm going to get through it all, but I guess that'd be okay.
Yeah, that would be.
I'm very thankful.
Oh, okay.
You're going to make me cry before we get started.
Right? I know. I said softball. Sorry, y'all.
It is emotional. I guess this week makes it so real that I made an amazing choice to carry the model forward. Thank you, Vanessa. Just seeing all these people together. This was something Jim and I dreamed about really all 15 years. We were going to do a summit. We were going to do a toolkit. We were going to do a podcast. None of those things made it to the top of the list until I had the courage to say, this company needs a new leader. And fortunately, we found Vanessa. It's interesting. A couple people have said to me, well, why, Wendy? Why did you sell the company? One person even said I was kind of mad at you. And I guess I didn't do a very good job of explaining the why behind the reason that we did it. And it is so that the Kirkpatrick model has 70 times 70 more years. I think Jim and I gave it everything we could. And, we made amazing progress with it. But it was just time.
Okay, well, here we all are.
That
was a softball, y'all.
Way to start with a light one.
I didn't tell you all. I also didn't tell you. I am awful at sports, so sorry about that. All right, here's really a softball, I think. Did Don Kirkpatrick have a favorite level of the Kirkpatrick model?
I'm going to ask for a show of hands. Who thinks his favorite level was level 4?
I've got a couple. It's not very many.
You're correct. How about level 3? Who thinks it's level 3? Okay. No, wrong. Who thinks it's level 2?
You work for the radio station, Wendy. You know too much.
Win the prize.
Who thinks it's level 1? That's my answer. Level 1. Don loved to create energy for people and excitement for people. We kind of had to get with the 3, didn't we? And you got with the 4. I was a 3 guy. She was a 4. But he loved to present. He was a professor, and he loved his overhead projector. He'd say, "I'd like to introduce you to the overhead projector." And but I think that was his favorite one is connecting, the engaging people and creating energy. That was what he lived for.
I think level 1 can get a bad rap because of the way it's executed, but I think Edward's point in the panel earlier was formative, right? You could really get a lot of good data out of level 1 and make connections at that level. Doesn't mean that's where we start. That doesn't mean that's where we stay. However, we can't just completely brush it to the side because there is a lot of power, to your point, that can be created from that level. So just for the folks here, raise of hands, who's a level 4 fan? Got a few. We got a few. Okay. Level 3. I'm a level 3 gal. Level 2. Oh, what? I love it. Anyone level 1 with Don K? So after that story, relevance. That's fair. That's fair. And also to Jim's point about dad loving the overhead transparency. See how I said that? Because, he's like my dad too now. We've got the overhead transparencies, and they shall be at the Platinum celebration. If anyone would like to see them, there will be gloves though to handle them, but they will be at the Platinum celebration, so you'll be able to see those. All right. Is there a memorable moment of Don's that illustrates his passion for training evaluation?
Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna tell you the story. Some of you maybe heard it. The book on the 4 levels says 1954, working on his PhD dissertation. Hey, we can read it. No, there's fact there. And he came up with, I think he primarily used he didn't call them levels. He called it, we want to see how they're reacting, want to see if they're learning, want to see if they're going to do anything. And I think it wasn't until 59 and 60 where he wrote articles. He was requested to write articles. They said, we want you to write an article. He said, no, I'll write 4 articles. By that time, he had figured out that we got to go to results. So he walked through the 4 levels, and others think that's the beginning. Some others say it's when the industry started adopting it as a model. And but the true story here is it happened 10 years prior to 1954. It happened in 1944. And what happened was there was a private first class that was in France and later in Belgium and this private first class, it was probably 15 days after D-Day. He found himself with this group, this company had moved inland from France, and they came across a bridge on a canal, and they said the orders were hold that bridge at all costs. And so they thought, okay, well, we know how to do that. It was sunny and night, and they're getting everything ready. And then it started getting darker, and it was getting dusk, and they could hear the tanks in the distance coming towards the bridge. And he said, as a person, we panicked. We got scared. The situation was scary. And he said, as they were getting closer, the story is, he said, his training kicked in to a man. It all kicked in at that moment when they needed it. They held the Germans off, and the reinforcements came, and they're lying on the ground, crying and laughing and holding each other. It was such a release of emotion. And this private first class, at that moment, he said, I remember thinking, if ever I get the chance in my lifetime to help the people that helped save my life and the life of my buddies here today on this ground in France, I will take that opportunity. And 10 years later, private first class Don Kirkpatrick got his chance. That's where it started.
So that makes me cry every time. So thank you for sharing. We actually just also shared that story in Arizona, and the moderator on that panel also has told the story a couple of times, and he also tears and just, thank you to your dad for what he did.
And before he died, he said, Jim, I appreciate it if you would continue the legacy of helping people, particularly in the armed forces. And I'm going to take him at his word, and I'm going to go as long as I can and do that and whatever else comes my way too.
Thank you. Well, yeah. Wendy, I'll go to you on this one. What has it been like to see the changes in the learning and performance space, but having the Kirkpatrick model remain at the center of it?
Well, I think the Kirkpatrick model speaks for itself in its amazing flexibility and adaptability. And I really attribute that to the simplicity that I guess we have to go all the way back to Dr. Raymond Katzel, who was an organizational psychologist, who was the one who inspired Dr. Don Kirkpatrick. And when he was doing his PhD dissertation and looking for, well, how am I going to evaluate this leadership development program? It was supervisory training is what they called it at the time, but it's that same leadership development program that so many of us are still challenged with today. And he found these 4 simple dimensions: reaction, learning, behavior, and results. And he didn't call it a model. The industry is who built the model, honestly, just by taking that work and adapting it. So, I think the reason the Kirkpatrick model remains the leading model, the most used, I like to think the most loved model around the world, is because it's complete. It's simple enough that anybody can use it, anybody can understand it. You can absolutely adapt it. So, sometimes we get these messages from people asking our permission. Well, is it okay if I, make this tweak to level 3? Well, of course, it's your model too. That the industry is what built this model first and foremost. And that's why it transcends any small change. The topic now is, well, what's AI going to do with the model? We'll talk about that a little bit for sure throughout the course of this conference, but rest assured, the model is so simple, flexible, adaptable, it will always work. And because it always works, it rolls with every change.
And, I think AI will have its moments, but, if anyone was trying to get out in ChatGPT today, like I was earlier, it was down. So you still had to rely on, yourself and your brain.
Oh my gosh, you actually just had to think instead of like asking a bot.
I did have an moment, and then I went back and used my brain. So what are some of the common challenges organizations face when trying to implement the Kirkpatrick model? And what strategies do you recommend for overcoming these challenges?
Well, I think the challenges are buy-in. And I know that's a very common word and people use it like, you need to buy into me, you need to buy into me and all that. And it's at any of the areas of the levels here. It's just not getting enough critical mass to create culture change, create organizational change. We see a lot of things that happen in organizations, large and small, where there are successes. But I think the way to solve that, and I've seen many of you do that, is by thinking of it differently. First of all, we're not trying to get them to buy in. We're trying to recruit them to be part of this. And also, I remember my dad, he when I was a kid, he'd say, watch your language, Jim. I don't remember, even if I did, I wouldn't tell you, but I don't remember what I would say that would cause him to say that. But I think the solution is watch your language. And in order to create the alliances, be talking their language. And that's really how you create the buy-in, by not trying to sell him something. And I remember I did a conference with Stephen Covey once, and we talked about what is, I asked him, well, what of your 7 habits, which is the one that's the most important? And we were at I think ATD or something, ASTD. There was just the 2 of us in this bookstore. And he was sitting on a stool, and I went, can I talk to him and stuff? And he said, oh, no, they all kind of work the same. They're all connected to one another. And they all that. I said, I know that. I know that's the company line. I get that. But is there one that these 10,000 people in this room, in this conference center, need to be focusing on more than any others? He said, oh, yes. Go on. And he said, seek first to understand. Yep, Tim knows that, before you seek to understand. And that really is the key, is when you're trying to partner with your peers, your colleagues, line managers, supervisors, project sponsors, whoever it is, resist the temptation to open your mouth and start selling them something. So, we got a competency model for you, or we got a upskilling for you, or, oh, you caught a fish. My fish was big, longer than your, Don't hijack the conversation, but earn the right by listening first, like I did the second role play with you, asking more questions, because only then will she trust me enough to say, do you have something that might be helpful? The first time, you wouldn't have even answered the phone if I would have called you. It just blew you off. So seek first to understand and earn the right when they say, you've been really patient listening, and I'm glad you understand. Do you have anything that might help us? You say, you know what, if we work together, I think we do. Well, let's give it a try. Works every time. As long as we resist the temptation to hijack the conversation.
Yeah, I like what you're saying there, Jim. I think that's a big one, really, getting that buy-in and doing the subtle selling upwards, which is not really selling. I think something that goes hand in hand with that, where we see people having trouble getting buy-in, sometimes it's because it just seems too big, too hard, too complicated, too many moving parts and pieces. So, really boiling it down to what are the very most important things that need to be done. When we talk about the critical behaviors, being laser focused on really what things do people need to do on the job, and making sure you're getting clarity on that up front. I think, how often do we work with organizations, and that could become a multi-hour conversation, particularly in things like leadership development, onboarding, succession planning. If you can't instantly say, as a result of this multi-million-dollar training program, here's literally what people should do after attending it, there's no point in moving forward. So I think taking that time to get the clarity to really make the plan before trying to run down the road to implement the plan is definitely a challenge we see.
Get your reps in, start small, right? I think sometimes we want to evaluate these really big initiatives and we have to get all of this buy-in. Well, look at what it is that you can control. Maybe it's just something within your own team to help you start to get that practice in, get some of that data, get some of those stories in, to say, this is how we implemented it on our team, and this is the results that we're seeing. Now, what about us trying it with our multi-million-dollar leadership development program or onboarding program, right? when you can show them the proof in the pudding, I think it really does help to make the case instead of, trying to, I say this one all the time and I just forget it, eat the elephant.
Oh, very good.
Thank you. Thank you. What advice can you give to learning professionals looking to gain the buy-in from colleagues, line managers, and stakeholders on the value of evaluation? Do you have like one go-to phrase or saying or story that you'll share with them?
I think if you're having trouble getting buy-in, I feel like the first thing you do is take a good critical look at yourself. Are you coming to the person you're trying to get buy-in from as someone in their own country, or are you a foreigner? Have you taken the time to learn their language, research what their priorities are, seek first to understand, ask the open-ended questions. When I was a training manager, it was actually before I even met Jim, and I kind of sort of knew the Kirkpatrick model, but I was definitely not living it yet. And I called up one of the marketing managers that was one of my internal customers that I served. And honestly, I was going to peddle her some training. And I was super lucky that day that she flipped the dialogue on me, very much the way I flipped the dialogue on Jim in that role play. And she said, our shutter numbers are way too low in our region, and we need to get those sales up. And, I know there are some promotions coming out of corporate, but frankly, there's too much information. Do you think there would be something you could do to help me to organize all this information and package it up so that we can increase our numbers? Because then we might have time to do some training. So interesting comment, right? We might have time to do some training after we do our real work. That was an eye-opener. But what I did with that information is I went to my boss and I said, will you let me help her with this? It's not exactly training, but I can spin it. He's like, do whatever you need to do to build this relationship. So what ended up happening is I started publishing a weekly report for her and her sales manager and their sales team, and they liked it. So they took it to the national sales call that occurred the next week. And I started getting all of these emails from sales and marketing managers saying, well, can I get your report? I'm like, oh, it's a report now. Excellent. And then they said, well, can you come to the meeting? And then it really became, well, they weren't going to have a sales meeting until they checked my schedule and I could be there to do training. Sometimes it was training, sometimes it was communication, but what it sure was relationship building. So then when it was time to do some training, they answered my call then.
Have you ever been stumped by an evaluation project or request?
No.
Oh.
And this one is so easy. What I said before about the elegant simplicity and adaptability of the model, it always, always, always works. It doesn't have to be a program. It doesn't have to be training. It doesn't have to be an initiative. You know what? We can do it right now. Throw out anything you can think of where you might need it to be successful. Anything from the group here? Buying a house. Okay, no problem. Well, this one is near and dear to Vanessa because she's in the midst of doing that right now. Okay, so level 4 results. What is your life like in your perfect home? She has somewhere to live, ladies and gentlemen. This is an accomplishment right now.
I to go to school.
Okay, and what is the significance of an address for your children to go to school?
Well, I want them to be very well educated, and I want them to make friends in a brand new place, a brand new state, and I want them to really love where they live.
All right, so if that works, if your kids have that school, so they make friends, they get a good education, they're happy, they're well adjusted, what comes out of that?
Oh, I have hopefully really good humans, so that are, that came out of my womb, if you will.
Absolutely. Good human beings.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That this is your biggest, most important job as a mother and a wife. Yeah. Making those children productive, happy, great members of society
Absolutely.
who make their contribution the same way you're making yours. So you've got a great level 4 results. So I don't think I need to keep going, do I? With critical behaviors, we all know how to buy a house, right? It's pretty straightforward. But yeah, you can use the 4 levels for anything and set your highest level goal, set your critical behaviors, and make your path.
And think of this. Let's say you and your husband, when the girls, how old are the girls now? 8, 6 and 7. When they were 2 and 1, you went to parent training. Okay. So they went to parent training. They learned all about what? You know where I'm going with this, right? Go to parent training, and then you get a book, and you can study on it. And then you wait for them to cross the graduation thing. Well, how ridiculous is that? Because those kids, not purposely, but they're going to throw everything they can at you. And you've got to be setting limits on this and offering freedom on this. So it's just as silly to think that if you send people to training or plant your garden, it's going to bring about positive results. It is all the stuff in between that you've got to manage and monitor and deal with. So there you go on that.
One other little tidbit on that, that some of us have talked about here. It is human nature that we are all unique and we are all special. So almost everybody, to a person when they call, the Kirkpatrick program isn't going to be right for them. They need custom consulting because they are special. Their program is special. Their organization is special. I think many of you in this room are educated, intelligent, and humble enough to realize none of us are that different and special. All of these challenges are universal, programs are universal, and whether you're corporate, government, military, not-for-profit, there are commonalities that cut all the way across. That's why the Kirkpatrick model always works. And then the next piece is, of course, it gets tailored, customized, and made the way it needs to be for your organization, your program, and your specific situation. But the same principles are always there.
But also, if you want consulting, just come see me. And I think to your point there as well, Wendy, that's why we wanted to do this, right? I didn't literally just wake up, I kind of did, and said, let's put together a summit today. I did do that. And that's why, right? Being able to put people together in a place, small, nice, intimate setting with lots of really good food, and to have those conversations to see that we're actually more similar than we are different. And if we can learn from each other and what's working, over here for the Air Force might be working really well over here at the bank, or might not work. And, we have those conversations. That's where the magic happens, right? And that's where, I hope that y'all take that as we go into tomorrow and have all of our speaking sessions and things like that, and take the time to talk to each other and network and ask the really hard questions of each other and see how others are dealing with those challenges. So, Jim, you're a trendsetter, right? A trendsetter?
I would hope so.
Yeah.
I'd like to.
You keep up with all the latest trends and technologies and all of that?
Maybe not.
Where are you going with this? Because that's way wrong.
What do you think some of the latest trends in learning? What are some of the latest trends in learning and performance that you believe will have the most significant impact on organizational training over the next few years?
Well, I think it is taking technology, that is rapidly advancing. And Tim, you talked about the AI, right? When I'm down in Biloxi, we talked about that a lot, and you talked about a whole lot more than and I listened a lot. But I think it is taking the technology and being wise about it, not just applying it and thinking it is the answer, but taking that and streamlining the things that used to take us so much time. And then with that time saved and that information instantly, ongoing information, not just here and here and here, but ongoing information to be making decisions, then the human spirit and the human factor has time to work its magic with the relationships and analyzing the information, analyzing the intel, making decisions, and then executing it together. And I think we're at a perfect time for that to happen. Don't ask me how to help you with the AI though.
When I couldn't get on ChatGPT. Wendy, did you have anything that you wanted to share? Any trends that you've noticed?
Yeah, I do. Tagging on to what Jim said about the importance and growth of technology, I really think that goes hand in hand with our trend to more people working remotely and not necessarily the same core business hours. I have to say, when I was the owner of Kirkpatrick Partners, I laid awake at night thinking about this a lot, trying to find the right mix for my own company and then think through the dramatic implications on training evaluation for this, or just evaluation in general, and performance monitoring, support, accountability, and all of those things. Our new world makes all of this so critically important because, hey, let's be honest. I think people don't always want to just call it what it is. The reason for decades and decades, we've all been brought into an office and need to show up at a certain time and eat lunch at the same time and leave at the same time is accountability. And it's a very old school way to do it that, workers are saying pretty loudly is not working for them. And it's an employee's market right now. For any of you trying to hire people, very well know. So, this is, I think, a great challenge for all of us to find ways for how do you provide support? How do you have a reasonable level of accountability so that you can keep the talent that is now commanding this ability to work a lot more independently?
Okay. Speaking of AI, with the rapid advancements of AI technologies, how do you see AI impacting the field of training and evaluation, and what opportunities and challenges do you foresee for the Kirkpatrick model in this context?
I had a funny feeling I would be the one covering this question. Well, you know what? I have to thank Danielle, our marketing person in the back of the room, for getting me started in AI, because I'm not going to lie, I was very intimidated looking at this. I thought, what is this thing? And I thought I was already behind. Well, I have some really good news for all of you if you think you're way behind. In the May Training magazine, there was an article with results of a poll on leadership development and really, where are we in leadership development? And 800 some people answered it. And when they were asked about the degree to which they're using AI in their leadership development, 48% of people said they hadn't even thought about it yet. And then on down the list. So guess how many said they were meaningfully using AI in their leadership development program? 7%. So that's the good news for all of us. You're not behind yet. But it's coming, and it's coming fast. For people who are experts in the field, which I am definitely not one, they're saying within the next 2 years, you would be very wise to get your arms around AI, figure out how it fits. So that's the process I'm in along with all of you. So where am I right now with this, and what thoughts do I have to share? And I definitely want to chat with all of you, lunch breaks, et cetera, about how you're using this. I started those conversations at lunch. I think it's being used effectively in an opposite way from what people would think. So think about it this way. When computers came on the market, a lot of people were terrified that, oh my gosh, all these jobs are going to go away because the computers are going to do the work for us. If you have a computer that does your job for you, may I please buy it from you? Because I would love to have that computer. And I think AI is the same way. AI is a tool. It's not a brain. It's not smart. It just gives you back the knowledge that someone else has put into it. And there's nobody screening if that's right or wrong. So what you don't want to use AI for in evaluation, from my perspective, you do not want to use it to do a first pass of your data, especially if you're looking for sentiment or for it to make any judgments. This is not a judgment tool. That's not what it's used for. So what do I suggest you use AI for? This is really what Danielle taught me, and I've started doing this, and this is saving me time. Let's say you have a project that you're starting, or there's something that you need to get done. Ask AI to build it for you. Say, for example, I need an evaluation form for a 1-hour meeting where we're going to be discussing ideas to reduce attrition. See what it gives you back. I'm going to say from my experience, I didn't like the answer it gave me. I didn't want to use the content, but what it gave me was a great outline and structure. It would show me what the format could look like, maybe about how long it should be, what types of questions I might want to ask. But then I would proceed to rewrite every question because that's where my knowledge and experience come in. So I think it's a great brainstorming tool. It's a good first step, but it still requires your real wisdom to complement the artificial intelligence.
Believe it or not, look, how surprised is she? I'm looking at Ryan over here from Qualtrics, and we've talked a lot over the months and stuff, and I worry about the I part. I think you are too, that we're assuming that it's intelligent. Well, and I think what you're saying is you got some structure from it, but the items that you saw were probably not intelligently made. So a lot of the data that's out there, we think, oh, we can capture that quickly. But if the data is not intelligent and it's not really using the principles that we've been talking about here, is getting at, level 2 and the bridge to level 3 and performance and accountability, all those things, you're making decisions on unintelligent. So it's AU, artificial unintelligence. So that's why I really like where you guys are going. You are working, day and night on making sure that the data that your surveys and your other tools are gathering is intelligent, useful data. And I think that's what you were saying.
That made me think of one other thing that I've found the AI good for. So let's say you do have an evaluation plan, an evaluation form. You can give it to like Chat GPT and say, make this more concise, make this shorter, improve the writing style, things like that. Then, of course, if you're talking about actual question creation, you want to make sure it didn't change the meaning of what you were trying to ask. But so it can be really good on the front end to generate some ideas, then insert your brain, your experience, your knowledge of your project and your organization. Then you can send the results of your thoughts back through and it can help you to polish. So it can be a real time saver, but it doesn't replace the need for the thinking person. Because, yeah, actually, if you want to do a scary one, this is a fun one. Type in what is the Kirkpatrick model, and it will give you the old school 1, 2, 3, 4. It will name the levels wrong. It will give you the wrong definitions. It will give you examples that kind of make me cringe a little bit. Yeah. So this is where you have to remember, it's just pulling from what's out there. And there is a lot out there that is not the model that we teach and evangelize.
And then they post the wrong version of the model on LinkedIn. So that was fun. Thank you. So last AI question, what do you think Don would say about the state of L&D and AI today? Was he a tech guy at all? I have to ask.
Yeah, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. I know what he would say, because even back, 20 years ago, he died in 2014. And before that, we would be explaining things to him. He always wanted to say, what are you guys working on? Well, we're working on, required drivers, and see this circle here and leading indicators. And he'd be looking at it like deer in the headlights. He'd go, wow, that's really interesting. That's way above what I ever thought. I don't understand it, but keep doing it. It sounds good. That's what he said back then. And that's what he's saying now. Because a lot of people don't know that he was an expert in change management. He was an expert in supervision, appraisal, performance appraisals. He wrote thick books. He was even Jack and Patty Phillips. We used all his stuff back then because he was, this is going to be kind of hard to say. He was more an expert in those things than he ever was in evaluation. And that's what, his books were way ahead of time. Mm-hmm. But he's known as the father of evaluation. So we're no fools, right? If they call him the father, we'll be the remaining ones. But he would say, that's really neat, Wendy and Jim. It's so impressive, but
he won't be on ChatGPT. Got it. Well, so speaking of, okay, so I was at a small mini conference in New York City, representing Kirkpatrick Partners. And there was someone there that felt the model is very outdated and made her point very well known that we should not be following this model because it is 70 years old, as I'm celebrating the fact that something could last 70 years. I hope to last 70 years. What do you say to people who say that the Kirkpatrick model is old, outdated, and needs a whole refresh?
I get to start on this one, huh? Well, I think the first thing I typically say, because I certainly have had a lot of people say that to me as well, it has been refreshed numerous times. And trivia question, does anybody in this room know how many times the definition of level 3 behavior has been formally modified based on what Jim called it, how we defined it, and from there? Guesses? 5, 3. The right answer is 3. And see, you're all guessing. You didn't even notice that we've made these just nuanced changes. And that's really just to help people to better implement it. As time goes on, technology changes, the world changes. Sometimes we just realize there's a little better way to make clear what the original intent was. And so, those small changes can be made. So that helps to keep it current. The other thing, I feel like I have said this so many times, but the elegant simplicity and flexibility of the model, things that are simple, elegant, useful, effective, and easy to adopt, they don't go out of style and they don't need to go away. The newer models, if you will, when you really drill down, what they've done is taken the base of the Kirkpatrick model often, maybe not taken the time to really understand it and test it out. And they feel they need to add something that's missing that we would respectfully say was there all along.
Excites you most about the future of Kirkpatrick Partners?
Well, I'm really nervous about it.
As you should be.
I am not nervous about it.
Mhm.
Well, for one thing, people would always ask me about the other models. What do you think of these models? And I say, I don't really know anything about them. I don't really make it my business to try and compare ours to them. I haven't studied them. They say, well, what kind of research do you guys do? I said, well, we research best practices. I spend my time researching best practice, finding out what's working and what isn't. But I know now what you guys are pulling together is some more clinical research, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's more based on studies. And isn't there even a research branch now
team
of coming out of Kirkpatrick Partners?
Yeah.
So that is what others have been way ahead of us when they do all kinds of research and have empirical, Spearman, Pearson coefficients on all this and that. We just didn't choose to go into that. But now we know there are others in this room that do that and we'll partner with, so we will have a strong arm that will give a lot more credibility than Jim K just saying, take my word for it, and take the word of others. So I'm really looking forward to that. And if you need any help with that, don't call me. I got my PhD. That's last research I've
That's fair.
Well, I am so excited about what Vanessa and her team are doing to really spread the Kirkpatrick model, make it easier for people to access and use. In just 10 months, they have revamped the certification programs. They've done the revamp, I guess, number 4, I think, of the logo, number 3 of the color palette. They have launched the Kirkpatrick Toolkit, the Kirkpatrick Podcast. I had almost forgotten about the research team. I'm probably forgetting a few things on the list. In 10 months, in 14 years and 7 months, Jim and I did a fraction of that. And honestly, I'm just thrilled to see things moving forward with all of the plans that we had, that we wanted to do, that they just never made it to the top of the stack. So This is what we're so excited about, and we know it's going to be amazing.
Thank you. Yeah, I think we've got some really a great foundation from what you all have built, and then having a great team is really just how it all really happens, right? The people to help the vision forward. So, ready for some rapid fire questions before we go to the audience? What's one myth you wish you could bust about the model?
Say it again.
One myth you wish to bust about the model?
It's impossible for real people to get to level 4.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think in this room, how many of you have gotten to level 4? Raise your hand. Yeah. And this is one small sampling of the world.
I'm good at that. Yes.
Describe the Kirkpatrick model in one word.
Heart.
Love that.
Standard, but I really need 2 words because it's the standard.
What has been your biggest inspiration in the field of learning and performance? Or who?
I am really inspired by Elaine Beek. Maybe because partially she's sort of like me. She's an introvert who is a hard worker and just rolls up her sleeves and gets it done. I have no idea how many books she's written, but she has helped so many people. She really guided me early on when the business started, and she is just unstoppable.
I would say it's Beverly. Oh, you don't know who Beverly is? Mm-hmm. Beverly was in one of our programs right here in this before COVID hit, and she was with the Navy, and she was sitting back the whole time and taking it in, and then finally we asked an example of somebody that has done something that was rather risky. She said, "Well, I've always been working the schoolhouse, and I decided that I was going to see if I could get permission to go onto the ships and actually talk to people." And so she did. And she said she went out. They said, "What are you doing here?" "Well, I just came to find out what you all are doing. I know we're building some things that are supposed to help you. I thought I might come and help." "Really?" And she kind of went on to the very humbly, bold for mission, humble of spirit. And she said that she heard over and over the magic words that I always remember: "You're not who we thought you were." And that was the magic words of, you care about us. You're interested in us. You're trying to find information that you can come back. I don't even remember her last name, but her name was Beverly. And all of the rest of the people said, "Wow, way to go." Because everyone is saying, "It can't be done. It can't be done. They don't welcome us. They don't." She just got in a skiff and went out to a destroyer or whatever she did, and she made it happen. So it's Beverly.
Oh, this is so easy. And actually, this is an adaptation that you've made to the model. I feel incredibly passionately about a definition for level 4 that's a combination of your mission and your financial reality. And what I mean by that is every organization, if they don't have a mission, they'd probably be wise to frame a mission. What is this organization on the planet to accomplish or to give or to do? Why do they exist? I also feel passionately about the financial reality. We have many people here in military, government, not-for-profit situations where it's not about making money, but you have a very strong financial reality. And I think this speaks to what Melanie was saying during the international panel, that which organizations seem to do the best with evaluation. It's the ones that need to go get the money, that they need to earn their funding. They need to get donations. So I always felt really passionate that these 2 things needed to be part of a level 4 results statement. Jim has a little different view on level 4.
It's getting kind of warm in here. I'm feeling like, here we go again. No, I don't. Yeah, my thought is a simpler version would be to just use the mission statement, and then making sure people know you gotta you got to be on budget, because I think if we start to rewrite something that we might try and sell to the senior stakeholders over there that is something other than the mission statement, it might confuse them. And if we're strictly using the mission statement and they say, well, we disagree with that, I'll say, well, let me remind you what the mission is. And I can hold people to the fire with that. But you know what? For 14 years, it always stayed the same, though. It always stayed her way. The reason is because I was the senior consultant and she was the president. So she had the final word. But yeah, you rascal.
Well, I think the person out teaching the classes sometimes, though, massaged that a little bit and took some liberties, right?
Okay, last fun question. What are you going to be drinking tomorrow at the Platinum Celebration?
Drinking?
Yes, beverages, alcoholic.
Oh, I love Chardonnay.
Oh, you're Chardonnay.
I don't.
again?
I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I will probably either Guinness or well, I just got back from somewhere where I had pina coladas, so that it was. No, I'll just go rum and Coke. I kind of like that.
I like that. I like that. Wendy?
Just one, probably.
It's always the same for me. It's Chardonnay.
Love it. Any questions from anybody in the online audience or in person that they want to ask Jim and Wendy? You can ask them anything. Melanie?
It's not a question, that's okay.
Yeah.
It's a comment. Based on your question about, I think, out on, and how they said what you've achieved in the 10 months. And as one of your affiliates, I do think you should give yourself a little bit of credit as well, Jim and Wendy. Mm-hmm. You've built an amazing network that a lot of us are part of. You brought the model to the world and made it very international and global. I absolutely agree with what Vanessa and team have been doing is amazing, but give yourself a little bit of credit as well. For the time that we've worked with you, you've done amazing work as well.
Stand in the back. If I ran in heels, you can run in flats.
I think you took a very hard route because your father was iconic in this business and both of you chose to follow in his footsteps. Was there pressure? What was it like? And that being said, what are you most proud of that you contributed after his contributions?
All right. Well, I've been a renegade. I'm a maverick. I will continue to be. I don't follow the crowd very often, and I didn't want to follow his crowd. You know, he'd be writing all his books and stuff. I never read any of them. I never paid any attention to it. I was always afraid he'd ask me what the names of the 4 levels were. I knew a couple of the words. This is into my 30s and 40s, and I mentioned before that I talked my way into being a training manager for a bank in Indianapolis. And so I bluffed my way in there, and some of the people, they could tell I was not an expert in training. But anyway, so one day, one of the guys, John Galloway, his name was, he said, there's a visiting professor coming from out of town, and he's going to speak to my master's degree program in instructional design technology. You'd be welcome to come along. It just, might be interested in that. I said, is there a free lunch? He said, yeah. I said, okay, I'll join. So I'm in there, I'm kind of dawdling and listening to different things. And then I thought, well, wait a minute, that he just said something. So I took a salt shaker and I put it there. And then this professor said, oh, I did, how about this? I said, oh, I took the pepper shaker. And then I started moving the packets of sugar and stuff around because it was making sense. I had a napkin. I maybe could write a few notes, but I start moving things around. I thought that really makes sense. And I think I'm going to show an interest in that. You know who the visiting professor was? Donald Kirkpatrick. That's right. That's the first time I ever really paid any attention to it. And from then and I still move those salt shakers around, don't I? And the packets to just try and improve it. But I think that the thing that I'm pleased with is that we have helped to sustain the heart of the model, because that's why the model went viral, because he went around the world everywhere, and everywhere he went, he was gracious with people. He'd ride the elephants in India, and he would do all the different things. And I think he became an icon, just not for the model, but just who this guy was that would go to all the countries and be so interested in all their cultures. And I think we've continued with that. I'm proud of that.
Yeah, well, so don't get me wrong. There's a lot I am proud of in terms of what Jim and I built in our stint with being the stewards of the Kirkpatrick brand. I was just darn lucky. And let me define lucky. Lucky is the intersection of good preparation and an opportunity. I was handed on a silver platter the opportunity to take one of the best known, best loved models in the world and simply build the company to support it and grow it and help people to use it. So it was the final exam for every job I ever had, every position I ever had, everything I ever learned. Went into how do you build a company and build it really fast? Because most companies start with an idea and they maybe need to build brand recognition or build their product. Ours was already off and running. Jim was already teaching Kirkpatrick certification programs. He'd made a lot of contacts. People knew Don. So for me, it was a race to build the infrastructure and the network to make it happen. And the affiliate network was a huge piece of that. There are countries outside the United States where the model is incredibly well known, and there's somewhere not so well known. So our affiliates each had their own challenges as well. So trying to build that network, support it, build a team, build operations, marketing, sales, all of those things. I think that was really that was the biggest part. And at the same time, also Jim and I serving as the thought leaders. And, you know, I think it has the iconic piece of paper with the New World Model diagram on it. Made the trip here. Okay, it's here. So yeah, the notebook paper where we just, you know, I think it was late in the afternoon, kind of end of a day. And we're like, we haven't done a good job of showing people how to use this model. You know, we realized when you broke down a lot of the criticisms of the model, we're like, no, that's in there. No, it does that. No, it can do that. It should do that. And that's when we realized it's all there in the model, but our challenge was how do we explain that, make it easy for people, make it usable. So that's really, I think, what our contribution has been with when, you know, we went through the New World Model and the new diagram and start with level 4 and those ideas and Jim's foundational principles. I'm going to call those Jim's because I definitely did not. The Kirkpatrick foundational principles were yours. And I'm going to say the first time I heard the value must be created before it can be demonstrated, that one took my brain a minute. And now that's absolutely my favorite and most important one. So just building a lot of those parts and pieces. So being able to hand this to Vanessa, who, you know, obviously is, you know, the visionary person to then just keep that momentum going.
Well, with that, we are out of time for today, but I want to thank you all for being here. Thank you, Jim and Wendy, for being so open, honest, transparent, and authentic with us and sharing your time, talents, and treasures, not just today, but to the industry for, you know, more than 14 years, truly. So thank you both very much.